Hey, we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show in which we go back through history itself and find you some of the biggest cock-ups, mistakes, and tragic stupidity throughout the history of humanity and give you lessons that you can learn from those instances and hopefully never repeat them again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. Mistakes are fun, and especially when you get to document them in a podcast. Joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I am doing fantastic, man.
Yeah. How are things over here? Yeah, what's going on over in Arizona?
Well, I know I hate that, we're a couple of old dudes talk about the weather, but it's already 80 degrees here today.
That's crazy. What the fuck?
Yet I'm still wearing a hoodie because F you, weather.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've got climate control. It's fine. You can wear a hoodie. We've got so I have been kind of playing catch up around the house because we're at a stage now with the work we're having done on the house where like the extension's up, a lot of the flooring is in, the shower is almost in, the bathroom, the toilet's in, the sink's in. All of the stuff in the utility area is going in. So we've got the new fridge freezer. So we've got 2 of those now, which is massive luxury.
Nice.
The washing machine's in its new place. Yes, I know. And like we're going to have the cabinetry is going to show up soon, so we can have loads of storage in the utility. And the flooring is going to go down in the the dining room extension, and then like everything will be done. But today I was like, we've had builders around nonstop for like 2 months. And we have a very small path at the side of our house which leads around to the back. So you've got like a side gate and then a path around the outside of the building. So you can take your bins out front when it's that day again. And the builders have obviously been coming and going. They've been bringing all the supplies through. They've been like mixing cement out there. They've been like dumping shit in the garden's a right fucking mess. But like the path itself. So whenever I take the dog out to go and do her business in the garden, we invariably bring half of this rubble back in with us. And it's meant that there is like dust and rubble and sand and shit just everywhere through the ground floor. And sometimes it gets dragged upstairs as well because you've got them working and they're knocking dust around. But when you're constantly coming in and out with the dog, it just brings even more in. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go outside with a broom and I'm going to clean that fucking path up. And boy, howdy did I got a wheelbarrow full of just all sorts of shit. I know, and I picked it up and I threw it away. It was very satisfying. And then I stopped and I was like, oh yeah, I've got a chronic illness, haven't I? I shouldn't really have done that. That was a really stupid mistake. And
just after it.
I know it's always after you do something. When you get older, you do these things and then it really catches up with you. But especially when you got a long-term incurable chronic illness, it really hits you hard. So I finished that and I lay down on the sofa and my wife was like, do you want a cup of tea? Do you want me to make you some lunch? I was like, yeah, please. And then I fell asleep for 2 hours. So that was my Saturday. Fucking amazing.
But you got something done.
I got something. I felt like a man. I felt secure in my manhood.
I was actually worried that I was going to still be a little bit sick today.
Oh, have you not been
well, it's in a weird way, and I'm just guessing, but I went and got my COVID booster.
Okay.
And I had some side effects this time compared to my other 2 times, where I was a little bit tired and whatnot. I got swelled up under the armpit, scared the hell out of me, but it turns out that's normal. And
that happened to my wife as well. That's like totally normal, unfortunately. Yeah. One guy I know went to get his done in a pharmacy, like round the corner from where he lives. So it was like far enough away for him to be like, I'm not walking this shit. So he like hopped in the car, drove around the corner, and he's like, while I'm here, I'll just like get a couple of bits from like food from the shop and stuff. So he was in the pharmacy, and pharmacies in the UK tend to be quite small, but they have like little really weird small pop-up little consultation rooms off to the side, which are typically made out of like cardboard. Like you can hear everything that goes on in there. There's no privacy whatsoever. But you're maybe 5 feet away from the other person in the consultation room. It's very, very close. The pharmacist walked in and my friend noticed that the guy didn't have his mask on properly. So he had the nose hanging out from it's like, nice. You're a fucking medical professional. What's wrong with you? So anyway, he was like, he realized then he didn't want to be in this room any longer than he had to be with this guy. Because he's got kids, he's got older relatives. You never know what, they might get. Anyway, so he's in the room with the guy, and the guy gives him the booster. And it caught a nerve in his arm, and his arm went dead. And the pharmacist was like, you can't leave. Your arm is dead. There's no way you can leave. You drove here, right? He's like, I'm fine. I'm sorry. And he just didn't want to be in the room with the pharmacist anymore, who just grease all over him with his nose and made his arm go dead. So he had to drive the mile and a half back to his house with one arm. And in this country, we don't really have automatic cars. Like, you have to gear shift everything. So he was like having to accelerate a little bit and then move his right foot over to the clutch and put that down, and then shift gear and then back over to the thing. And he was like, it was the most dangerous mile and a half of driving. And also, it's the UK. We don't have straight roads here. They're always busy. They're always narrow. They're always winding as fuck. And he's driving a family car with one hand. So
stuntman.
Yeah. So things happen when you get injections, and people wonder why I have a phobia of needles. Anyway, so we've had a nice catch up.
Yeah.
Derek, can you tell us who your specific idiot is this episode, please?
Okay, so lately I was kind of thinking that the people in my stories have felt a little heavy.
You did say that to me, yeah.
This episode, I wanted to lighten things up a little bit and get softer, if you will.
Yeah.
I figure there's nothing softer than a nice pillow, right?
Nice. Yes. Yeah.
After that really drawn out train wreck of a punny joke, I'm going to tell you the tale of the American businessman, conservative politician, activist, conspiracy theorist, and founder and CEO of MyPillow. That MyPillow company in Minnesota, Mike Lindell.
I have heard of this guy. I haven't heard much, but I've heard that he owns a pillow company and he's fucking insane. So I can't wait for this.
Oh, is he? Yes. I almost feel okay. I almost feel a little bit bad because I try not to bully or be mean to anybody.
No, of course, no.
And while I was writing this, I wandered in and out of in-depth analysis. I don't know. I was feeling real deep on observations, so I went ahead and wrote those down as well. Forgive my opinionated report this time.
No, that's okay.
I do that every time.
Hit us with your opinion, Derek.
So Mike was born on June 28th, 1961 in Mankato, Minnesota, and he was raised in the southwest rural area just outside of Minneapolis in Chaska, Minnesota.
Cool.
Until he was 7, and his parents split up, and at that time he moved into the neighboring town of Carver, which is literally straight right down.
Right. Okay.
That's according to his memoirs. What are the odds? From crack addict to CEO.
Wait, what? He was a crack addict?
Oh, yeah. Yes. That's how things started. Well,
okay.
I mean, they started where we're at, but that's what he named his first book.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
He talks about developing a bit of a gambling habit in that book during his teenage years, and that gambling addiction eventually led down a path to other addictions and then some really rough, ugly patches later on, but I'll get to those.
Yeah.
According to the MyPillow website, Mike had trouble sleeping as a teen because his pillow would get hot. And
I know the feeling.
That led him to go out and blow an entire paycheck on a pillow because he thought if it's expensive, it has to be good, right? Like most people do.
Yeah, you think you get what you pay for, but not always.
Yeah, it's a reasonable assumption, but a flawed logic. And
it is.
It's the kind of oversimplified thinking that could perhaps lead somebody to be a conspiracy theorist later on.
Yeah.
But that's just me thinking out loud. Like I said, I thought about stuff as I wandered through here. And anyway, it was the issue with the pillow when he figured out that money doesn't mean good, and he started going through all of the pillows. Like he says that he literally tried every pillow out in a search for a good night's sleep.
This guy's, I'll give him, he's dedicated to the cause. And actually, like a comfortable night's sleep, that's one of the most important things in life. So I'm on his side with this pillow Nirvana hunt that he's going on.
According to an interview he did in the Star Tribune in Minnesota, he says that he suffered from a low. Sorry, I wandered off into the pillow thing. When he was younger, he suffered from a lack of self-esteem, which he traces back to his parents' divorce. Sure. And then when he moved to that new school, he developed like a fear of talking to strangers that it led to an almost crippling fear of rejection, he says.
Now, that makes a lot of sense, especially in your teenage years. You know, divorce at a young age does a lot of different weird things to people, but actually social anxiety disorders and stuff like that, I can totally, you know, with the hormones and the awkwardness and going to a new school, I can totally understand that. That's really sad and actually probably far too familiar for most people than not. So,
and he said in order to fit in and face those fears, he started acting out and showing off. Yeah, and he tells stories about one time he evaded bullies by jumping out the window of a moving fucking school bus.
Yeah, that's a lie.
To get he sounds like a maniac, but
well, maybe it's not a lie then.
That's just one of the stories that he says is true. And then after high school, he went to the University of Minnesota, but dropped out after a few months. And at his 5-year high school reunion, he felt so intimidated that he wanted to impress his classmates. They all had college degrees and families. And so he told astonishing tales about the time he crashed his motorcycle, the same day he had a parachute malfunction while skydiving, some mafia
the same
bookies,
day,
apparently, allegedly. Some mafia bookies came to his house to collect $20,000 worth of bad sports bets, and he had a short-lived career as a professional Las Vegas card counter.
Yeah, I mean, if he'd mentioned one of those things, you can tell everyone tells tall tales, right? Or embellishes. Like, I get it, you know, you overemphasize maybe your time with a company or your influence or whatever it might be, but to do nothing but lie is a problem, because if you know, you tell more than one giant lie, it's going to be like so see-through that everyone's going to basically get that you're a liar.
Well, herein lies the issue, though.
Right.
And I'll get to that here, because in the same Star Tribune interview, he also talked about his near-death experiences, where he claims that at 14, he almost died in such a way that somehow included being trapped under the ice and electrocuted, assumingly at the same fucking time.
That's kind of impossible. Okay, yeah, maybe there were eels.
He's quoted as saying, "I would tell these stories and they seem so over the top, and they were true because I didn't have anything else good to say. I'd bring up my self-worth and attention by talking about these stories."
Sure.
He took the attention off of not having a family or a girlfriend or anything like that. But he asserts that it's true.
That is sad, you know, and I'd imagine it's more common than we probably recognize in society, that, you know, when people are insecure, they embellish and tell porky pies and stuff. And that's fine. Eventually, most people grow out of that. But actually, as you were saying, because I don't think it's wrong of you to say this, you know, you were talking about like addiction and this kind of attention behaving. This actually is totally someone that I can see would be easily swept up in the world of conspiracy theories, because like it's a very similar thing to a lot of addictions.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Well, and here's the other thing about him is that his stories seem like fantastic and over the top.
Yeah,
but they could be something that actually happens. Yeah. However, they're usually completely unverifiable. Yeah. And even in that quote, where he says, I did this to bring up my self-worth and get attention so I wouldn't have to talk about not having a family or a girlfriend. To me, it seems like he's even like he's got a dangerous thing happening where he's leaning towards self-victimization in order to avoid accountability if he gets caught lying.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that front.
And that sort of thing leads to you buying into your own bullshit.
Yeah, that's another problem.
Can be dangerous.
Yeah, it really can.
And it's really that, and they were true, Port, that he prompted that, yes, they're true. And then he shifts to, because I didn't have anything else good to say. It's like, oh, that poor bastard. You already forgot that you were questioning him.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's a very sensible pivot, I guess, to distract from the fact that he's full of shit. But actually, I think the better thing that he could have done, and it's certainly something that if people are, habitual liars in conversation can do, pivot to hope. Like this guy's like, okay, I'm on a mission. And like, I think most people could identify with that. I need to get a good night's sleep. The pillow always gets hot. It's really bothered me. I've always wondered, why can't there be a pillow that stays cool all the time? So I'm on this life's mission to kind of do this, and I'm setting up a company, and I'm hoping that's going to be my thing. Like, I think that's an interesting story in idle conversation. Bring that up, and you are an interesting person. People buy into you. They buy into your story and your goals in life. You don't have to embellish. Just, tell people about yourself and the interesting shit you've got going on, your beliefs, and most people will buy into it. You don't have to embellish.
At the time, though, he didn't have anything going on. He hadn't really started working down his path of entrepreneurship, where he was opening up bars and lunch wagons and stuff like that. Okay. He was starting out and trying. And like you were saying, when you're kind of that good at weaving stories, though, maybe you should just try your hand in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, just write something.
And one of the stories that he tells that I think could be a Hollywood thing was actually the story of how My Pillow came to be. Okay. That, according to Mike, it came to him in a dream. After a lifetime of shitty sleep, he came up with the idea of My Pillow, and then got his kids to help create the logo and the prototype. And it's really just shredded foam in various sizes that comes together like an aggregate and locks in, but it's still soft and remains keeps the flexibleness.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds good.
It came to him in a dream. I guess I'll give him that.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that say it came to me in a dream. I can fully believe that Paul McCartney dreamt up the song yesterday, because artists, musicians, what have you, they dream in if they're geniuses, they dream their kind of, actual imagination and ability to create art. I can totally believe that Paul McCartney dreamt the song yesterday, but in his dream it was called Scrambled Eggs, which is what he says. Like, I totally believe that story. What I don't believe is fucking Joseph Smith. Like, God told me that there was some gold buried in the woods and a fucking genie. It just goes off rails.
Yeah, go back and translate it a second time. Well, they're different now.
Well, it's totally changed now. It's not that easy.
I'll skip that part, because you know what? I do think that it could have come to him in a dream, and it's kind of heartwarming that he had his kids help out and do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cute. Yeah.
And at first, he wasn't able to convince the big box stores that the pillow had any potential. And then he wandered on and started a kiosk and sort of failed at that. Mm-hmm. But he got into the groove when he started screwing around with home shows and expos and fairs and becoming more of a pitch man.
Ah, there's his skill.
Yes. And he loved telling people how the pillow could help them, and would go on and entertain the strangers without being high on drugs, he says. Unfortunately, just as the product was getting traction, his business and personal life hit the skids, because his not doing drugs wasn't a thing. His wife of 20 years left him. He filed for bankruptcy, and he was addicted to crack cocaine.
Oh, shit. So, wait, I'd like to know the sequence of events with that one, whether it was like the wife left him because they weren't making any money and he was doing crack, or whether like the bankruptcy, then the wife, then the crack. I'd like to know the sequence of that. What has causal effect on the other? But yeah, that's a pretty hard combination of shit to happen to one person at one time.
Yeah, and it sucks. And I could see it. Like, I can see the wife leaving you, and then you're bankrupt, and then you get addicted to crack. That seems a normal sequence, but he probably did it all out of order.
Let's dabble in one and lose all my money, and then a bit more crack, and then a little bit more.
Now, this leads me to another unbelievable and unverifiable could-be-true story.
Sure.
The story he talks about how he quit crack and got his act together.
All right.
In this story, his dealer cuts him off after he's on a 14 to 19 day binge by telling him that he won't sell to him anymore until he goes to sleep. According to Mike, his primary drug dealer staged an intervention of sorts and ordered the other drug dealers to cut him off. He said, if some crazy white guy with a mustache wants drugs, don't sell to him. Okay. And in an interview with Bloomberg Business Week, Mike says he usually goes with saying it was 14 days that the binge lasted without him sleeping because he thinks that 19 would make people feel like he sounds like he embellished. And again, telling him that he might be lying, I think, is what he was doing there.
I think there's a limit on how long you can stay awake as a human being for, even if you're doing like drugs. There was a radio experiment, was it back in the 50s or 60s, where this guy tried to stay awake for like 7 days, and by the 5th day he started hallucinating, and he ran out into the street and like had to get tackled to the ground.
It makes I've heard stuff like that, but then I also get it confused with the creepypasta about the Russian
creepypasta stupid shit. Yeah, but I'm pretty certain, I'm confident in saying that it is, you'd be dead if you stayed alive for longer than about 10 days without
I don't imagine you'd be in good shape. And I guess maybe that's how you'd see your drug dealer say, hey, no more drugs for you until you take a nap, little one.
Yeah, I don't know. Not that I've known an awful lot of drug dealers in my time, but they don't exactly seem like they're the ones to tuck you in and read you a bedtime story, especially people who deal crack. I'd imagine you have to be pretty tough to deal crack. Hash, maybe not quite so much, but crack.
Yeah, I figure your Rasta dealer is a whole lot different than your crack dealer.
Yeah, a little bit more hopped up.
That story is another example of like, it might be true.
Sure.
But likely now it has me wondering if he did have a drug addiction, and like, I don't know.
Maybe he had a low level and it wasn't a problem because it wasn't necessarily interfering with his life at that point. But like, I can imagine a 3-day crack binge, right? I've heard stories of people going on booze, drinks. George Best, a British footballer, went on a 30-day drinking binge, right? I mean, he slept, he passed out and shit, but he did nothing. In 30 days, he drank nothing but beer, ate nothing but peanuts and crisps. For the entire 30 days, that was all he consumed, was beer and bar snacks. So I can believe binges. However, what I can't believe is staying awake on drugs for more than about 5 days. Like, your body just gets fucked. Right?
I feel like that dude should have filmed that and turned it into like a super drunk me movie or something.
Pretty much. I'm sure nobody's surprised. George Best is long dead now, and he continued drinking after his kidney transplant. So,
what a dick.
I know. Yeah, we might cover George Best in the future. Stay tuned.
Anyway, back to Mr. Mike Lindell. Like I was saying, those stories are actually already part of his legend now. So, like, when you go to try to find out stuff about the My Pillow guy, you're finding out stories about. He went from being a cocaine addict and a crack addict to being this businessman, and he pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And
it's a good narrative.
There's really nobody that can confirm a lot of it, though. I mean, probably his ex-wife might, but
he was definitely doing crack at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then recently he started getting involved with conspiracy theories and Donald Trump and his venture into creating the alt tech to protect freedom of speech. But as of like a year after he quit cocaine, when his dealer Ty told him, "Go to bed, Mike," like that's a quote, and then called the other dealers. So he said directly after that, he achieved sobriety through prayer in 2009 and embraced religion and prayed that he'd be rid of his desire for drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes, which is nice. It's good.
It happens. Like, people find Jesus and religion, whatever religion it might be, and it does keep them on the straight and narrow. There will be psychologists out there that will say that they have traded an addiction for whatever it is for religion. But, I don't think an addiction to religion is anywhere near as dangerous as an addiction to crack, for sure.
Probably not. No.
You're essentially trading one chemical reaction in your brain for another, basically.
Well, Here's the concern, though, because when he tells the story, he says he embraced the religion and he prayed that he would get rid of the desire for drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes.
Okay.
And contrary to the experience of virtually all other addicts, his cravings just went away through prayer.
Yeah, that's bullshit. He's probably still doing drugs.
I'm guessing, maybe.
Allegedly, maybe, possibly, maybe not.
His business breakthrough came shortly after he got sober.
Sure.
And it happened through his famously cheesy infomercials where late night television brings him forth to the American public and maybe the world in 2011. And he's dressed in his crisp blue button-up shirt, sporting a cross around his neck with a big bushy mustache and a Ken doll haircut.
Oh, nice. That's quite a picture you're painting there.
And he launches into an unscripted pitch where he gestures radically and wildly and raves about how My Pillow is going to help folks sleep better.
Right.
And it
worked. That kind of thing does work. Infomercials, at their very best, when you have a very charismatic salesperson, have been hugely successful. So,
and he's an amazing pitch man. Yeah,
exactly. Like we've learned from people like Vijay Mallya, the guy who came up with the beer in India, founded an entire empire just off these insane fucking adverts that usually start him. Like, you sell in the right way, you will make a lot of money.
And right there, that's it. Because what he did was pretty brilliant. And it's safe to assume that at least some of the folks that are watching late night television are also having trouble sleeping.
That's a very good point. And possibly on crack.
Oh, yeah. But it makes you think that maybe some of them are going to be willing to try anything to get some sleep, including listening to some maniac with a crazy mustache telling them how cool his pillow is.
That's actually brilliant. Yes, in terms of coincidental advertising, that's fucking brilliant. It doesn't get much better than that.
I kind of wonder, like I said, I question whether or not his entire origin story and all of that is it's questionable because of how much this other stuff is. I feel like maybe he knew what he was doing. He went after pillows because he wanted to launch them on late night. But I mean, that's just another conspiracy theory.
Which he'd probably buy into.
Turns out by 2012, Mike's infomercial became the country's top infomercial on the independent ranking firm Jordan Whitney's coveted list of infomercials.
Wow.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Neither did
There's lists and charts for friggin' everything.
Literally everything. Except our podcast, apparently. But yeah.
Anyway, so the My Pillow guy became like a household name here in the States. And then by 2017, things kind of started turning downward again for him when the Better Business Bureau took away accreditation of My Pillow because they were getting ratings or complaints by consumers that he's saying you buy one, you get one free. But that's just the price. It's not a special offer that's going away. That's just the price of 2 damn pillows.
Right, I see. So, okay. Jesus.
So the Better Business Bureau lowered his rating to an F because he was false advertising. Buy one, get one free is not real when it's just we sell them by the twos.
Yeah, exactly. It's a deliberate misleading thing, isn't it? For sure.
And he disagreed with it and said that he's terribly disappointed, but he moved on. By 2017, he started getting into the Trump entourage, and he had a ton of shit to say. Am I allowed to call it the Trump entourage? Is that a fair assessment of it? Okay.
You could call it another word that vaguely rhymes with Trump if you want, but definitely Trump entourage. That's fair. Both the TV show and him were pretty awful, so go for it.
And he ended up pretty tight with him.
I remember that.
He was at all kinds of different functions and the final debate in Vegas and the campaign rally in Minnesota. And then he was at the inauguration where Trump actually gave him an inauguration lapel pin as a personal gift. So, it's safe to say they were buddies.
Yeah, sounds like it.
At the rally in Fargo, North Dakota on June 27th, 2018, Trump complimented Lindell for his business acumen and assumingly to return the favor at the 2019 Political Action Conference, Mike spoke about Trump and said that he is the greatest president in history and, quote, chosen by God. So that's the sort of shit that you hear people talking about kings, usually.
Yeah, very true.
And dictators and things of that nature. God picked him.
Right, of
so
course.
in May of 2020, he became the campaign chair for Trump's re-election campaign in Minnesota. It's funny how homie hookups happen like that.
Yeah.
But then in July 2020, he stepped it up a notch and said he was 99% sure he was running for the Minnesota governor, reportedly at Trump's urging.
I mean, I'm sure Trump urged him. But do you take that advice? Here's the thing about getting into politics. If you have any skeletons in your closet, stay the hell away from politics, because that shit will make its way out.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going to do shit like this, in November 2020, Mike decided to help out America's youth by being among those who paid for the bail for the Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, fucking hell.
And then he responded to accusations of, hey, you donated to get that guy out of jail, with, no, I donated to the Fight Back Foundation to help fund election fraud litigation and other things. Okay. That story is, quote, fake news.
It clearly isn't, though. But
no, it's funny because a lot of the stuff that has come out about him has been verified and shown to be true, yet nothing in his interviews and stories and legend is really confirmed too much. I imagine that there was drug abuse and he actually was divorced twice and all of that. But speaking of fake news, let's get into Mike's take on COVID-19.
Oh, God, love him.
Early on in the pandemic, I actually kind of thought he was going to do good things. He showed up on Fox News and said that his company's bedding factories were going to pivot to creating face masks and help Trump get more of them and get them out.
Okay.
Then he ended up in White House meetings and at public appearances promoting a toxic plant extract, oleandrin, as a miracle cure for COVID-19.
Fucking snake oil.
Whoops.
What is this?
I thought he was going to do good shit, and then he's like, hey, you know what you should do? You should take this oleandrin. It works. It's a miracle of all time. That sounds like a snake oil pitch right there for sure.
It does, doesn't it? And he sounds throughout his entire career, basically a snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
Same tactic and everything.
Modern day. Wow. In another television appearance, he made other misleading statements about the testing of that substance. And it should be mentioned that Mike has financial stakes in Phoenix Biotechnology, which is the company that makes oleandrin. And did I mention he also sits on that company's board?
Yeah.
It's those sort of fail. It's those
unsubstantiated.
Those ones that got scientists kind of alarmed because there's no scientific evidence that oleandrin is safe or effective. And actually, there's evidence that plant is poisonous even in low doses to humans. So
that's fucking crazy. I mean, at least it's not a horse worming tablet, but Jesus Christ, people, take the fucking scientific stuff if you're going to take anything.
Well, he's pushing all of that, and then somehow he got the U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson, to jump on board with oleandrin and get Trump to look at the substance at least as a possible thing. But I mean, if we're being honest here, Trump was down with putting UV lights inside people, and he said bleach was what we needed, and then fucking aquarium cleaner. So, I mean, he'll look at anything, apparently.
He will literally look at anything, and all he has to do, unfortunately, is mention it in a press conference, and you're going to get millions of people at least trying it or thinking about trying it.
And I have to imagine that they realize that happens. Like, they can't be wandering through life like, I'm going to say stupid stuff and nobody's going to take me seriously.
Yeah, it's all for effect. It's all for money, ultimately.
Yeah, so that's I lost where I was. So it's that sort of behavior, though, that really kind of concerns me. His fibbing, his snake oil salesman pitching about dangerous stuff despite people telling him. And then, like I said, he started buying into his own bullshit.
Yeah.
And once you start doing that, bad things happen. Like the election in 2020, when somebody says they cheated, it was rigged. Maybe you buy into that a little bit because he's your buddy. And then why not start a major campaign supporting and financing Trump's attempt to overturn the election? Because that's what Mike did.
Jesus Christ.
He wandered through the country on a tour bus and promoted conspiracy theories that the voting machine companies Smartmatic and Dominion conspired with foreign powers to rig the voting machines and steal the election away from Trump.
Really? Are we involving Trump and foreign powers in the same sentence? I don't think that's going to end well in the conversation, to be honest.
Dude, I heard an awesome theory on that. I'll share it with you later.
Yeah, I think I might have heard a similar theory as well.
It seems pretty legit.
Yeah, I if it's the one I'm thinking of, it washes with what I know about Trump on a personal level. So yeah,
well, now I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's on that tour bus, and he's a personal sponsor, and he's challenging the election, and he ends that bus tour in Washington, D.C. on December 14th, 2020, after speaking at 5 stops along the way. And then he says, I did not help finance subsequent trips to promote the January 6th rally, though.
Can almost certainly mean he did.
He says, I was at the rally, but I didn't even go to the Capitol.
Hang on, what? How? Oh, right. So the rally was in front of the White House, wasn't it? That's
it was
right.
somewhere down the street, yeah.
Yeah, it was down the street, and Trump was like, he said something. He said there was one key phrase that was incredibly incendiary that basically tipped the scales in favor of a riot.
You mean we're going to march down there and take our house back?
Yeah, I think that might have been it. I think that was probably the sentence. And then people died. I feel like that was that whole I was at the rally, I wasn't at the storming of the Capitol. It's like, well, you were there, and it just meant that you were smart enough to not be manipulated into taking part in a riot, but you were still part of that whole thing, so
and financed stirring the shit pot.
Yeah, exactly. You created an environment for that to take place. So,
well, luckily in January and February of 2021, Dominion and others planned on suing him and sent him a letter saying that he's positioned himself as a prominent leader of the ongoing misinformation campaign, so he should knock it off.
That's fair.
And then on January 25th, 2021, Twitter said, get the fuck out of here. You're banned for perpetuating the unfounded claim that Trump won the 2020 election.
Yeah.
A Twitter spokesperson explained that he violated the company's policy that they implemented back in September. And then after that, his personal account was banned. What do you think he did?
He used a proxy account and got that banned.
Well, he went and used the corporate MyPillow account.
No, he used the corporate account. Are you out of your fucking mind? Is it a publicly traded company or is it private? Because if it's publicly traded, the FCC will have shit to say about that as well. Oh my God!
I don't know. I haven't even looked at that. That's bad research on my part. But
no. That's fine.
In several tweets under the MyPillow account, he told the Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey that he was going to be found out and should be put in prison when all is revealed.
Sure.
Following that string of tweets, Twitter permanently banned the MyPillow account as well.
Oh my God! Fucking pillow companies getting banned now. Jesus.
So. After that, he goes on Newsmax and
oh God,
has a broadcast for clarification of, excuse me. After that, the Newsmax news that had been reporting on him and having him on as a guest had a broadcast for clarification that it was false reporting about the voting machines. And in response to the demand letter from Dominion, they wouldn't be pursuing that because it didn't happen. They were false claims.
So even Newsmax, the hotbed of bullshit that is Newsmax, were being sued by the providers and had to make a retraction. That is big.
But wait, there's more.
I get that joke. I like that joke. That's a good
one. After that, Mike came on the network again in February to repeat the false claims.
Oh, you fucking idiot.
And that's when network anchor Bob Sellers tried to stop him, then said, fuck it, read a disclaimer, and walked off the set, which is pretty baller.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I would do. I've been in situations. I did an interview with a TV personality many, many years ago who used to be on the BBC. And I interviewed him about 3 months after he'd lost his job at the BBC. He ended up on like commercial television in the end, so it was no big loss. He probably earned more money making the move anyway. But he was so bitter at the BBC that getting him to stay on Question without going on a rant against the BBC and like saying the most libelous stuff was the hardest part of my radio career up to that point. So I was in my early to mid 20s and I'm interviewing this guy who's, 60 something, very famous and earned a lot of money through the BBC. And he is just burning this fucking bridge right on my show. And I don't work for the BBC, but I'm like, I don't want to burn the bridge as well. So I'm like, so maybe let's talk about this. He's like, well, I was talking about the BBC. And I was like, fucking hell, he's going to ruin my career. So I don't blame that anchor for being, you know what? Fuck this. I am out.
I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of the story. Yeah, just nope. Here's a disclaimer. This stuff's not real. I'm out of here. Yeah. You keep talking, Mike. It's cool.
Yeah, you take over. We won't even cut to commercial. Floor's yours.
And then in March 2021, Mike reported he's launching this alt-tech social media platform that he described as a cross between YouTube and Twitter that would be different from Gab and Parler.
Okay.
He originally called it VOCL or Vocal, but then he got a dispute from a company that owned a website called Vocal, and they told him, change your name, and he was like, oh, okay. So he changed it to Frank.
Just Frank?
Yep. Frank like launched.
Sorry, just like the really weird film about Frank Sidebottom. That's really fucking weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's speaking frankly is where he was going with that, or Frankie says relax or something.
That'd be amazing. Frankie goes to Hollywood. Holy shit.
So Frank launched on April 19th, 2021 and experienced a shit ton of technical issues that led him to say it was a massive attack. And in fact, Frank has no social network features and primarily offers embedded video streams, including Absolute Interface, which is a 2-hour video promoting conspiracy theories about the 2020 presidential election.
Sure.
He said he spent millions of dollars developing Frank, which is just a fun sentence to say.
Yeah.
But according to the invoices published by a Salon writer that were obtained through a leaked video conference with Lindell's IT team, he only spent about $936,000. So close to $1 million, but not millions.
Yeah. So again, fits in with his kind of modus operandi of like embellishment, but not just lies. Yeah, it's like I'll take a grain of truth and then sprinkle a fair amount of bullshit on top of it, and here you go, here's your food, mister.
Yeah, well, like the day he wrecked his motorcycle and then survived a parachute accident, he really went on a motorcycle ride and went skydiving.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems
more. I mean, when you're plummeting to the earth, pretty much anything is a survival. If you come out of it alive, you've basically survived falling 50,000 feet from the fucking stratosphere or whatever. It's like, yeah, I survived a parachuting accident. Pretty much all of parachuting is like surviving. So
maybe he didn't mean to fall out of the plane.
Maybe he was up there for a jolly and just happened to have a parachute on. That would have been James Bond as fuck. Jesus.
Anyway, I've wandered off again because that's
sorry. No, so much fun. This guy.
So after the whole Frank thing, Jared Holt, who's an extremist, far-right media researcher at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, he said that Lindell was being had by the people around him and all of the various products and ventures Lindell has going on, whether it's a pseudo documentary film or a social media platform are very expensive endeavors, and somebody is taking Lindell's money from him to produce all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying maybe he's not responsible, I guess. I don't know.
Sounds like a cop-out.
It seems like some sort of Inception type shit. It's like a conspiracy inside of a conspiracy inside of a dream about a pillow. So then on April 28th, Lindell's told good old Steve Bannon on a podcast that Frank was going to be launched again at a rally at the Corn Place Palace on May 10th, 2021.
Right.
The rally filled about half of Corn Palace's 3,000 person capacity.
Okay.
And did not include any substantive announcement about Frank, which continues to lack social networking features. And to add to the sad fact, a little irony, one journalist observed that Frank was actually using Amazon Web Services for its video hosting, despite Mike constantly being critical of big tech.
Yeah.
So that, though, is not as hilarious as the latest news, where in January 2022, he claimed to possess enough evidence to put everybody in prison for life. 300-some million people. End quote.
What?
Yeah. He said that he's going to put 300-some million people in prison for life because of the evidence that he has, which he has enough of it, to prove that they played a part in the 2020 election fraud.
300 million people.
Yes, which I'm fairly certain that the population in the United States is somewhere around 332 million.
Yeah. So he's saying that 300 million people knowingly committed treason, which is life in prison. I'm assuming that's the angle he's going for. That's an interesting claim. Where's he going to put them?
Well, here's my question. If 300 million people in a country with a population of 332 million are against you, you're probably fucking wrong.
Yeah, and like...
that means you only got 32 million people that agree with you.
Exactly. And also, like, if 300 million people are complicit in treason, knowingly so, how is it taking you this fucking long to find out?
Yeah, seems like it would have been pretty obvious.
I know. That's like 90% of the people around you are in on something, and you're only finding out now? What the fuck are you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
Jesus.
So that's the story up until now of my pillow guy, Mike Lindell.
Shit.
What do you think about him? I mean, this one might actually be a to be continued. Who knows what the hell?
Oh yeah, I think this is up there with Sean Moon and like a couple of others who are definitely like, oh yeah, there's more to come from this fucking idiot. This is weird because, like, you know, because again, we always like to look at the past of people here, and there's definitely stuff in there that's traumatic, and you know,
and actually, let me add one thing, just because he does run a drug recovery center for people.
That's really good.
And he's a philanthropist in that. So, I mean, he is doing some good things, but damn, he's doing some wacky shit.
Like, I give him credit for that. I actually think that because of the kind of the medical system and setup you guys have in America, I actually think that the more access people have to support services in terms of rehabilitation, the better. And it should actually, the majority of it should be at least free or cost based. Yeah, it's so weird because, like, for a start, it all seemed like for halfway through the story, it all seemed kind of innocent and somewhat harmless, right? A lot of his idiocy was like, oh, he had a bit of a drug habit, that happens. He got a divorce, that happens. Said and done some dodgy business practices, that happens. Capitalism, that everyone, even Warren Buffett's hands aren't clean, that sort of shit. So,
if you want to make money, you have to have done something different.
Yeah, like nobody really ever got rich following exactly every single rule to the letter. Like, so there's some gray areas that fucking everybody has stepped on in their time on the way to the top. So that I can forgive that. The problems obviously start when he gets involved with the Trump crowd. And like, had he just been a Trump supporter, been one of those people that shows up at rallies, fucking covered in Americana, fucking screaming at the top of their lungs, maybe gets involved with QAnon and Pizzagate and all the bullshit and stuff, I'd have been like, oh, he's bit of a fool, really. But actually, he starts becoming really dangerous because at one point he's the ultimate capitalist fool, in that he knows that he probably knows, certainly seems that he knows that this product that he was pushing as a cure for COVID was certainly at least minimally toxic. He probably knew that. He owned shares in it, didn't acknowledge that he did, and pushed it as a solution, and then tried to get his buddy involved in it. That is ultimate capitalist evil. That's one of those things where, like, I have a platform, I'm going to use it to fuck everyone over, but make me money. That's evil. Like, that's, you know,
and that's the thing too, is he getting his buddy Ben Carson's involved. That's a former presidential candidate. That's the secretary of HUD. Not that I'm sure what the fuck that has to do with medicine, but I mean, he is Dr. Ben Carson's.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah. He's a doctor. Yeah.
But that's the sort of stuff that gives ridiculousness validity to people, though.
That really is. And I mean, obviously, you can be just distrusting of supposedly elites and high profile people you want. I think keeping a high, like a reasonable level of cynicism in pretty much everything is always reasonably healthy, especially in this day and age. Like, just sort of question things that you're hearing doesn't mean that you have to drive a fucking truck slowly through Canada about it. But, like, you know, just just question, like, was like someone was talking to me the other day. Why are Russia so harsh on the Ukraine? Are there really Russian people like getting mistreated in Russia? I was like, look, the reason they invaded Crimea is because they wanted a warm water port for their navy. That's the only thing. They didn't have one because every other port they had was frozen at various stages of the year. So they needed one. Crimea had one. They invaded. And like, the question you got to ask yourself is, why are they currently looking at invading the Ukraine? It's because they've got loads of mineral riches and stuff like that. So
yes,
and usually ask yourself, what do they want?
Well, yeah. Well, that's the crazy thing about that whole Russia-Ukraine thing, is that use of social media and the bots and the tinkering. Russia's
crazy, isn't
pretty fucking good at making people, like, gaslighting people, basically.
They are amazing at it. They have perfected it, and that's the thing. And actually, the smartest thing the people on the other side have done so far is say today, pull your people out of the Ukraine. Russia is going to invade any day now, even though Russia has been saying for so long, we're not going to invade. We don't want to invade. This is just military exercises. That's why we've got 100,000 troops there. So it's, you know, it's important in this world to develop a certain level of cynicism. But this guy has taken conspiracy theories, and I genuinely believe he believes a fair chunk of them, because he sounds like he has the kind of personality that would get involved and wrapped up in that. Because, you know, you talk about an addictive personality. Addiction isn't just linked to substances, right? It can be, like we were saying before, it can be religion, it can be theories, it can be science. People can be addicted to exercise, people can be addicted to sex or romance, you know, anything that gives you a rush of chemicals in your brain, you can get addicted to. Doesn't matter what it is. Playing D&D, fucking clipping your toenails, any shit that brings you a massive rush, you're likely to keep pressing that fucking button as often as possible, right?
Yep.
And that's where conspiracy theories comes in, because he's essentially just replaced a different dopamine rush with another. So, you know, that's really what I see. In terms of scoring this guy, I can't go massively high, but definitely I think that in the last 10 years, he has ramped up the insanity and the idiocy to, I mean, his own fucking company's banned on Twitter. It's a pillow company. What is going on? That's insane to me. So yeah, I definitely think this guy, again, it's definitely a to be continued with him, but I would say probably I'm going to say a 79 for now. Okay. But I think there is a potential there for... actually, no, wait, let me think about this. No, he needs to be high. No, 83. I'm going to go 83. But there is a potential there, if he does more stupid stuff, to definitely end up in the high 80s. I was going a bit too low there because, like, he is stupid. Like, there is definite idiocy there.
Yeah, there's something about him. And that's, like I said, the whole fabrication and embellishment is what really drew me to him. Because honestly, I wanted to believe his story that he pulled himself out of addiction and started.
Yeah,
he did. I'll give him all of that. But he lost all his credibility along the way and after.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, fascinating story. I'd heard stuff about him in the past on Internet Today, show that is quite a popular thing with me. But I didn't really know the ins and outs of it because, I'm in the UK. We don't always get the details of, kind of insane people over in the States. We just, assume that they're all based in Florida. But like, that's fascinating. Thank you for telling me that. And actually, there is an element of this guy's story which kind of crosses over with my guy. So,
okay. Nice.
Moving into my section now, yes. I would like to tell you the story of William Zed Mcfarlane, better known as Billy McFarland. And the title of my guy is just how he's listed on Wikipedia, which is Billy McFarland, brackets, fraudster. Not even entrepreneur, nothing, just fraudster. That's his name on that's his given moniker on Wikipedia. Amazing. Got him. William Zed Mcfarlane was born in 1991. No specific month there. I guess he may have lied about that. He was raised in the Short Hills section of Millburn, New Jersey. His parents are real estate developers. And McFarland told the New York Times that at the age of 13, he founded an online outsourcing startup that matched clients with web designers. He graduated from Pingree School in 2010 and went on to attend Bucknell University, where he dropped out in May of his freshman year. So very similar to Pillow King of...
Yeah, just a few months and then he's out.
Yeah, just ghosted out. I mean, May, you did not... You lasted the winter. Congratulations, but you didn't make it to summer. So he dropped out of college towards the end of his freshman year and founded the short-lived online advertising platform Spling, where
never heard of it.
No, where he served as CEO. TechCrunch described Spling as a content-sharing network, criticizing its similarity to other services which existed at the time. I mean, that happens. People mimic, don't they? It's very common.
Yeah.
In August 2013, McFarland seeded payments company Magnesis with $1.5 million of investment funding, aiming to create an exclusive black card with social perks, such as club membership targeted at status-oriented millennials in certain big cities, i.e. New York, pretty much exclusively New York.
I feel like that when I started my logistics company in like 18 or 19, right, that people were offering me the opportunity to have this black card. And I'm like, what is it, like a credit card? And it's like, no, it's a you're cool card.
Yeah. That's pretty much it's pretty much what this is. Yeah. Get it out and show people, because then like you're a millennial. You're a cool millennial if you have this card. I don't give a fuck. So Magnesis was widely compared to American Express's black card, officially known as the Centurion card, that's a sexy fucking name right there. You go for ancient Rome there, American Express. Similarities between the two cards include that they're both black and made of metal. That's pretty much where. And also promised exclusive perks to members. Again, he's essentially ripping off an existing idea. That seems to be his bag.
Yeah,
right?
That's like exactly the same deal.
Basically. Yeah. Despite appearances, however, Magnesis's card was not a real charge card. Instead, each card copied the magstripe information from a customer's existing Wells Fargo or Bank of America card, for which it could then be used as a substitute. So it's just, by December 2013, the company had about 500 members. Benefits offered to members included VIP access to clubs, hotel discounts, and various exclusive events that you can pretty much get online if you look a little bit. So it's not
you
really
Google that
good.
shit.
Yeah, literally, just like go on, what is it, fucking various websites, and you can get these discounts, no problem at all. What was it, Groupon? Or shit
yeah,
like
there
that,
you go.
There you go. You don't need a card. It's not taking up real estate in your wallet. The company was initially based out of a rented townhouse in the West Village neighborhood of Manhattan, New York. The owner of this townhouse filed a lawsuit against McFarland in 2015, alleging that McFarland had trashed the building, an accusation he denied. I mean, it's kind of a situation where only rock stars and directors of terrible Fantastic Four films should be trashing houses like that, to be honest. But yeah, apparently Billy got in on the act as well.
He was trying to what is it? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, there was this time I had my company and we got a little drunk and you know, we trashed the building. Fucking Kate Moss over here. The case was settled in January 2016. The company subsequently relocated its headquarters to the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan. And by the end of 2016, it was operating in New York and Chicago. And according to McFarland, its membership had grown to the tens of thousands. Take that with a massive pinch of salt. I would say probably a couple of thousand at most.
Now, was there a charge to be part of this exclusive black card thing?
There absolutely was. Members paid a $250 fee to have a card, which is a lot of money to pay for a small black lump of metal, basically. Yes. Just get a fucking Sharpie and color in your Wells Fargo card. Save yourself some money. Christ. This is where it gets really juicy. McFarland met rapper Ja Rule when he attempted to book him for an event. The story, which McFarland told at the Web Summit in November 2016, goes that he had to go through numerous people and apparently a helicopter to get in touch with Ja Rule, the rapper. But once he did, apparently minds connected, and he made Ja Rule a celebrity ambassador for Magnesis. Who fucking needs a celebrity ambassador for a fucking charge card? Jesus.
Let me interpret that for you. So they got together and smoked weed, man.
Yeah.
And they came up with an idea.
And Billy was like, this guy's famous. I'm going to glom onto him. And Ja Rule was like, this idiot has a shitload of money. I'm going to glom onto him.
Yeah, so he came in a helicopter.
Yeah, it's a mutually beneficial ego arrangement. A former employee of Magnesis who was featured in the Hulu documentary Fyre Fraud said that Ja Rule had nothing to do with the business side of the company. Yeah, no shit. You know, let's bring Ja Rule in as the chief marketing officer or fucking CEO or never gonna happen.
That's that scary strategy of trying to make something look legit by attaching something that someone that people trust to it.
Yeah,
I mean, as much as you trust a rapper,
Ja Rule.
I mean,
I probably trust some rappers
for what it was. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it, you know, I think like I would trust Common. I think I'd probably trust Mos Def. I definitely trust Mos Def. Don't know if I trust Ja Rule. I don't know if there's something about him. Just I've seen too many documentaries where he's featured, I think, to maybe trust him now at this point.
No, he was in Fast and Furious movies, wasn't he?
I think that's Ludacris. Yeah, I think that might be Ludacris.
Okay.
Who was also featured on the roast of Justin Bieber. And there were multiple jokes made in his at him about the number of children he has with different women.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so what was it? The classic joke, because he was on stage. Shaquille O'Neal was there. Snoop Dogg was there. Kevin Hart was there. Pete Davidson was there. Martha Stewart was there. And a female comedian. She got up on stage and she said, all these rappers on this stage, and Martha Stewart's done the most jail time. That's nice. Fucking brilliant.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, moving on with Ja. So yeah, he's now the celebrity. Let's see. He has nothing to do with the business side, but he is the celebrity ambassador of Magnesis. And if you watch the documentary, it becomes very obvious very quickly that while Ja Rule wasn't necessarily complicit in any of the crimes, he sure as hell knew that there was something fucking dodgy going on and was desperate for a paycheck, to the point which he actually deliberately gaslit anyone who raised concerns and spent pretty much the majority of his time with Billy McFarland kissing his ass, even after everything had gone down.
Okay.
So that's your Ja Rule. That's pretty much a summary of his involvement, to be honest. After Magnesis, McFarland created the Fyre app and Fyre Media. The app was meant to operate sort of like Tinder. This is what the article says. Pairing up users with artists who could deny or approve a request to be booked for an event and set up their own booking fees. And this is where Fyre Festival was born. McFarlane and his team wanted to promote the app by throwing a music festival. Now, the Tinder analogy kind of works. I would say it's kind of a cross between Tinder and Cameo. So, you know, you can swipe right to approve, but like, you know, and actually, when you think about that as an app, that's not such a bad idea. I'm sure that it's been innovated on since it probably existed at the time as well.
It seems like that app is the sort of thing that'll get you, though, When We Were Young festival.
Yeah.
Like, I want them, and I want them, and I want them.
Yeah, I want all of these people. Do you have the money to pay for them? I'll take out loans. So, according to Billboard, McFarland and Ja Rule scouted locations for the festival in the Bahamas in early 2016, where they met Delroy Jackson, a local fixer who was later associated with Fyre and seen in the Hulu documentary. Poor old Delroy got so much shit for his involvement. So the initial thing, and this is not something that's covered in this article. This article's not bad, but it's like kind of skips over some initial things. They touted it as Pablo Escobar's island, or former island owned by him. It's essentially a mosquito-ridden strip of sand in the middle of the Bahamas. And they had plans to fit like 5,000 people on this island. And the guy who was a fixer for them was like, you can't fit 500 people on this island. Like, they physically will not fit on it. And then you've got staging and toilets and camping and all of this shit. And yeah, so in the film, Delroy Jackson said that he told McFarlane on the set that a festival was not going to be possible in the area that he was looking at. But as we know, that didn't stop McFarlane. Several people told Billy McFarlane that it wasn't possible to hold a festival. One person that raised objections, most of them were swiftly fired. One of the ones that was swiftly fired was a pilot. I have to do this now. People who are listening after the fact, I'm doing the hand
quotey fingers.
Quotey fingers. I'm going to use that now. A pilot who taught himself to fly using Microsoft Flight Simulator.
You mean like
no
a
lessons,
terrorist?
No formal lessons, just taught himself with Microsoft Flight Simulator and passed his fucking test.
Yeah, right.
So how do you learn to fly? Oh, I played a bunch of Star Wars games. It's essentially the same thing.
I'm a fucking astronaut too, then.
Yeah, I'm an astronaut. I played Star Wars. Yeah, and so this guy would be taking people, like multiple people, like these dual engine planes would be piled with like 8-9 people, and he'd be taking them up and doing multiple 0G drops in the planes. He'd be going all the way up and then just vomiting right down again. He's got no official training. He's just done Microsoft Flight Simulator.
God, I wonder if he even knows if the plane is capable of handling that sort of shit.
Exactly. That's the question I had in mind. So he was, not only was he a pilot, but he was like the guy handling logistics. And the guy who has no official training in being a pilot was trying to talk sense to Billy McFarlane. That's where we're at already with Fyre Festival. Billy fired him immediately. In December, a gaggle of supermodels and influencers started posting lavish Instagrams from what seemed to be the same Bahamas trip, but because they tagged many of the images with Fyre Festival, people quickly caught on to the trip being a viral marketing tactic. While in the Bahamas, the models, including Bella Hadid, Emily Ratajkowski, and Hailey Baldwin, also participated in a now infamous marketing video for the Fyre Festival that raised awareness of the event. So apparently the shoot was like a week-long fucking bender that everyone was constantly drunk. Billy McFarlane passed out and fell asleep on the beach at one point with the cameras rolling.
Jeez. That's where they blew the whole budget for the damn festival.
Basically, yes. They hired a bunch of yachts. They paid supermodels hundreds of thousands of dollars to show up to this thing. And actually, the supermodels have said afterwards, like, we didn't know anything. Like, our agents told us to show up to this thing. We had very little information. And there's like a dozen of them there. You know, there's a fair number of them. But you can tell as the footage goes on, they are becoming increasingly more concerned for their safety because they don't know. They're like, that's Ja Rule. We don't know who any of these other people are. And like, there's one part where Ja Rule, like, and also these guys are drunk. They're talking in like business terms, but not business. It's a bit Wolf of Wall Street,
That's
right?
what I'm picturing right there.
Yeah.
Too.
and they're hitting on the women, and sometimes in the most aggressive ways possible. And there's one part where Ja Rule just turns to a group of like 2 or 3 women, and he just goes, "Get in the fucking pool," and they just sort of like he's telling it because they're having this discussion about like, oh, it'd be great footage if we just like jumped in the pool and we look carefree. And the girl's like, no, I'm not doing that. I've like done my hair. I'm wearing a nice dress. I'm not fucking like get in the fucking pool.
Oh jeez.
They just sort of like like a couple of them freeze and go and like wave him off. It's really disturbing and incredibly awkward at the same time because Ja Rule looks like that fucking idiot at a party that everyone's like, oh, can we just get rid of him? Please.
Yeah.
He's making it worse. Kendall Jenner was paid to promote the festival via a since deleted Instagram, though Jenner, of all people, should have known whatever lives on the internet never dies. She was paid $250,000 for one Instagram post. We're in the wrong game, man. We're in the wrong fucking game. I would get paid $250 for we need to get prettier. We need to get taller, thinner, and prettier. It's too late. I'll just stick with being a Celtic hobbit. Jenna posted that she was hype to announce that I love being British and saying words like that. That her GOOD music family were going to be headliners at Fyre. GOOD, good Music Inc., is a record label founded by her then brother-in-law, Kanye West, and currently or previously included artists like Pusha T, Kanye West, and Teyana Taylor. No, I don't know who that last one is. None of whom ever appeared at Fyre Festival. Yeah. So that was a fucking lie. I don't think they were ever going to. I think that was just another buy-in. But $250,000. And there's footage of like after the whole thing went down, paparazzi catching up with her as she's going into a restaurant and asking her, hey Kendall, how was Fyre Festival? And she goes, like she's laughing about it. It's like, yeah, I made out with a shitload of money. I don't care.
Are you allowed to make money knowingly fucking lying to people?
Pretty much. Well, I mean, what are we talking? Look at the world we live in, man. You know, we're just talking about Russian bots and Trump. I mean, there's a whole world of money to be made from lying.
I have to figure this shit out. I got to be a better bad guy.
We really need to be more arseholey and stop being so, fucking principled. In the documentary Fyre Fraud, the Fyre team is shown at a New Year's Eve party in 2017. One of the festival contractors involved says that they hadn't done much, despite being 4 months out from the festival's launch. Because the majority of festivals, when you're planning your first festival, you need like a year and a half at least to plan shit like that. You're planning, you need permits. You need to get in contact with people. They've got schedules booked up for years ahead sometimes. You need to get staff and all of that stuff arranged. And they tried to do it in 6 months, I think, less than that. But 4 months out, they still...
I was going to say, it took me 6 months to book a dive bar concert with 3 bands.
Oh, yes, exactly. And actually, this is a conversation I was having with my wife after having watched this documentary. Like, if they just booked a concert, right, to promote this app, right? Mm-hmm. You book a concert, you get Kanye to headline, you get these good artists, whatever it is, just 3 acts, get a venue, put on a lavish venue. You spend, let's say, $1 million. You spend $1 million on a venue, right? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to look good. Invite really interesting influencers. You invite your Instagrammers and some select contest winners, stuff like shit. I sound like I could do this now. And all of a sudden you've got yourself an event and you get people to post about it on Instagram. It's not quite the level of what they were planning had that worked out, but it would have worked, right? There's your promotion right there. And that's much easier to do in 6 months than a fucking festival on a beach in the Bahamas that was owned by Pablo Escobar.
Where people are camping and shit.
Yeah, and like not even camping, like being promised luxury villas and shit. We'll get to that.
Yurts.
Yurts and stuff. And what's a fucking yurt doing on the beach? The festival contractors involved said that they hadn't done much, despite being 4 months out from the festival launch. In the documentary, Delroy Jackson, the fixer, brought up the need to go into overdrive to fix it in time and was met with complete apathy from Billy McFarland and his happy, merry troupe of liars.
Meanwhile, like Billy. Oh, sorry. I feel like Billy the whole time is like, "Stop shitting on my dreams. Don't tell me the impossible's not possible. I can do it."
there's a phrase he keeps using in these documentaries, like, you're talking about problems, we're solution focused. Like, no. Like, you have to come up with a problem before you have a solution, right? So we need to raise, it's like, no. I just want you to think up solutions. And like, Billy, we need to talk about this. Like, no, shut the fuck up. That was his thing. Meanwhile, Billy is drumming up interest and gathering as much money as possible to meet the ridiculous claims he was making to encourage people to pay tens of thousands of dollars to stay in non-existent villas and luxury glamping accommodation or huge fucking yachts, which is my favorite part. It's like, oh yeah, 10 people on a yacht. Yeah, that's no problem. They had they had a bunch of artistic renderings of the accommodation and what it was going to look like. That's a big red flag for me, to be honest. If you're going somewhere, right, and your accommodation is an artistic rendering, never, ever trust it. You trust photos. If someone's drawn a picture of what your room will look like, it doesn't exist. It's that simple. You know, it's straight. Can you imagine making a booking on Airbnb and all you met with is a fucking pencil sketch? But this is what the room looks like. Well, take a fucking picture. You've got a phone, haven't you? Jesus.
No. I have no phone or internet, but I'm putting this on Airbnb.
But I've got a great drawing ability. The same month that the supposed headlining acts for the festival started to leak, the very first tweet was sent out from the account at Fyre Fraud, run by venture capitalist Calvin Wells. In Fyre Fraud, Wells said that he got so fed up with trying to warn people that he just started posting his findings that proved Fyre was going to be a disaster and was a scam. A month before festival guests arrived, he tweeted evidence. He basically got in a plane, flew over the fucking site of the festival and took a bunch of pictures. He tweeted evidence that the festival wasn't on a private beach, but in an undeveloped lot next to a sandals resort, which is so fucking desperate.
Just put it in the sandals parking lot. This is where we'll have a concert.
Yeah, and when the official map was produced, they like conveniently cut off where the sandals resort was supposed to be. Like, oh, it's an island. No, this is just a portion of an existing island. Okay. And also, the festival was happening at a time, like, if it had been booked at different times, it probably would have been okay because there'd have been like places for people to stay. The Sandals Resort would have opened its doors to these people because they'd been like, okay, we've got like 300 spare rooms, whatever it might be. They booked it at a time of year when there was a sailing regatta on, and the population of the island where the event was held doubles. And these hotel rooms are booked up over a year in advance. So they were basically going to be homeless if it didn't work out. And we know what happens. So less than a month before the festival, one of the first articles detailing issues with the festival came out. The Wall Street Journal reported on April the 2nd of 2017 that artists hadn't been paid. VIP guests didn't have their traveling itineraries, flight information, and claims that the festival was wooing the wealthy just to make ends meet, which it was doing, actually. Things were going so badly that one of the main organizers, Andy King, this is the most shocking thing, and actually really horrible as well, who's one of the few people to come out of the documentary looking halfway decent, was asked to go down to the local customs office and suck the local custom officer's dick to release the water trucks that had been impounded because they hadn't paid the import fee. And King, this is the quote from Andy King, bless him. It's heartbreaking when he says this in the documentary. Billy McFarland called and said, Andy, we need you to take one big thing for the team. You're our wonderful gay leader, and we need you to go down. Will you suck dick to fix this water problem? He said that in a phone call to this guy who's been working with for 15 years. And this is the sad part. I swear Andy King goes, like, you can tell he's upset, but he's like trying not to break because he's got pride and he's in a documentary and stuff. And he said, I literally drove home, took a shower, drank some mouthwash, got into my car to drive across the island to take one for the team. And I got to the head of customs office fully prepared to suck his dick. And that's so sad that his boss had essentially prostituted him. Thankfully, disgusting. Thankfully, the customs official didn't want that and was just like, look, King, he said to Andy, can you promise me that when this all goes pear-shaped, and he knew it was going to go bad, that he was going to be one of the first people to get paid? He was like, we need to get paid. We are the customs officials for this island. We have a very important job to do. We need to make sure that this office is up and running and that shit doesn't get smuggled through and stuff like that. So we need this money for our budget. So thankfully that didn't have to happen, but Jesus Christ. Thoughts?
What the Jesus, man.
It's horrible.
I can hear the bro dude type of guy that he is saying that, and it's still it's like, my God, man. Like, how do you tell somebody that, like, never that's just it's insane.
It's like, and the weird thing is, you watch both documentaries, there are points when you're like, Billy McFarland should be feeling emotions here. He should be having some sort of an emotional response to this situation or this question or this thing that's happening. And he is a blank-faced crash test dummy of a human being. He has no emotional reaction to anything other than, this is what I want. And at that point, you start to think he might actually be a sociopath because he has no feelings, no remorse, no care, no joy. He just has this kind of bland-looking dead-eye smile when he's supposed to be having fun. It doesn't look real. And that's what worries me, actually. At this point, the pressure was starting to get to him, though, because when he was being battered with questions from his employees and people who hadn't been paid, he would disappear for up to an hour at a time, driving insanely high speeds up and down the roads on an all-terrain vehicle. Probably not the best person to be in charge at that point. Also, I'm not pointing anything.
Hoping to accidentally kill himself.
Yeah, I feel like that's a possibility at that point. It's like, please get me out the responsibility. Or like have an accident. So he's like, oh, I've been badly injured. We have to call off the festival, blah, blah. Now, this is a point I wanted to make. I'm not pointing any fingers, but if you watch the documentary and you look at some of the people making very weird decisions and coming up with some of the stupidest ideas you've ever heard anyone come up with in history, there's a lot of frantic energy going on. They're smiling. There's a lot of manic laughing around like really weird decision makings. They're all red-faced. They're all kind of bloated. You make up your own mind what's been going on behind closed doors there. People,
they're all on drugs.
I'm sorry. They've got a very specific bloat going on. And I see signs on there that, there's definitely a lot of decisions being made that should not have been had they been in a better frame of mind. People bombarded the official website, email address, and social media sites with desperate questions, only to be met with a wall of silence, and were encouraged to put money on plastic wristbands to make the event cash-free. As much money as they made from the initial ticket sales and cons, because it sold out like that. Like within I think 3 days it was sold out, which is incredible, really, for a first-time festival. That just does not happen.
Especially with the rates they were charging.
Yeah, like $7,000 to $10,000 for a fucking glamping tent, for Christ's sake. The second con raised nearly as much money as the first, and the bands were essentially useless when you find out what happens later. The day before the event, there was a massive rainstorm that swept over the island and the venue and drenched the entire site. All the construction work had to stop, and the disaster relief tents that they were using in place of, the villas and the yachts and the fucking mega mansions that they promised were drenched through, essentially destroyed, and completely soaked through. The day that people were supposed to start arriving at Fyre Festival, Blink-182 pulled out of the lineup. In a tweet, the band wrote that they weren't confident that the stage and all the stuff they needed to be set up in a way that would make for a good performance was going to happen. And that was just the start of the day. When visitors started arriving on the island for Fyre Festival, the first 3 planes were sent to a neighboring resort, and hundreds of people were held at a local bar. I mean, literally held. They were not giving any information on how to get to the site, where it was. They were held at a bar for 6 hours and plied with booze non-stop, while Billy and his motley crew, try out of con artists and overworked employees, scrambled to make it look less like Ground Zero and more like Escobar's private island.
How drunk did he think he was going to get them that they were going to fall for that shit?
Kill them at that point. 6 hours drinking, and there's footage of that, people walking around with bottles and just pouring liquor into people's mouths. They still got on a bus. They still got on these fucking yellow school buses, right? Which immediately should have been like, hang on, yellow school buses, that doesn't exactly ring of luxury.
Right.
When visitors finally arrived on the yellow school buses, and there's another thing, the bus drivers were like, oh, it's been fucking disastrous, this week has been a complete nightmare, while they're driving them to the site. Oh, you're going to hate this. When visitors finally arrived on the buses, some of the people started panicking, and more than one person can be heard on the bus saying, turn this fucking bus around. Other visitors arrived at the site to find the tents, plastic-wrapped mattresses, and kiosks had been left unattended, with crates of alcohol left out in the sun to ply them with more booze. Chaos ensued as visitors discovered a lack of running water, in addition to the shoddy accommodation. Billy McFarland stood on a makeshift stage, which is basically a crate, to answer questions. And then it happened. The infamous cheese sandwich. Someone took a picture of the luxury food that they'd been promised, and it was a takeaway container with 2 pieces of bread, a bit of lettuce, and a slice of American cheese. And that was your fucking $60 meal for that.
Dude, I'm picturing they got this crate of booze, the cheese sandwich. They're like, grab a bottle, take one of them mattresses. We're gonna need you to start building shit.
That's it. That's literally what happened. There's a point at which they're like, oh, we've got security place for your luggage. The luggage arrives on like these 2 massive trucks, right? And they're just throwing it out onto the sands. Like, yeah, you pick out one of these black bags is probably yours. Just pick it out. And then they've got we've got security for all your belongings. It's just these massive lockers. The tiny little lockers, not like in like high school in America where you've got lockers it's like a PO box size fucking locker.
It's like an 8x8. Here you go.
No one's been assigned anything. They've got the keys in them already. They're easy to break into. And essentially, when the sun started going down and people didn't have water and they've been drinking booze all day, it became Lord of the Flies. It was just a fucking free for all. By the wee hours of the morning, Fyre Festival was officially cancelled after assessing the situation this morning and looking at the best options for our guests. We cannot move forward as we hoped we could have. The official Fyre account tweeted out at the time. People coming in on later flights had them cancelled, and empty planes were sent to the Bahamas to take people home. The international airport on the island was so overrun with confused people that they actually got confused themselves. Like, it seems that the confusion spread, and they locked these hundreds of people inside the fucking tiny ass airport while they were trying to figure out what to do with them. And of course, people started to panic. It was getting hot in there. So they eventually released the chains, because they chained them into the fucking airport.
So they thought they were being invaded.
Basically, yeah, they were like, shit, we've got to keep these people here. That was a weird decision, by the way. And also, at this point, Billy McFarland is nowhere to be found. No one can find him. He's done a Costa Concordia captain and just fucked off as quickly as he could, really. The Bahamian Ministry of Tourism issued a statement blaming the organizers themselves, no shit, claiming they were lied to about safety precautions taken. Ja Rule denied any fault in the festival's demise, insisting on Twitter that it was not a scam and that he had no idea how everything went so wrong. Ja Rule immediately started playing the victim in this, despite the fact he absolutely got paid. And none of the people, the dozens of bar owners or homeowners or workmen or security staff or talent, none of these people got paid a penny. They were owed tens of thousands of dollars. There was one bar owner, this poor woman had to dip into her own life savings. She lost $50,000 when she was feeding people booze constantly.
See, and really I feel like people like the influencer that got 250,000 and Ja Rule who got his money, I feel like they should have given that money back to help pay for some of them people.
Thankfully, there was a bunch of Kickstarters were started up by people after the thing. The bar owner got her money back and then some, and some of the workers got paid as well. Nowhere near as much as they should have done, but at least they got some remuneration, because, you know, this was a big deal for the island. If this had worked, then a lot of the lives of the people working there and living on the island would have been significantly better, and it didn't. It actually did the opposite. It financially crippled them, basically. And things got so bad for the organizers that they essentially had to be smuggled off the island, because gangs had been formed and people were being hunted down so that these gangs of people could get paid. Andy King lay down in the back of a Jeep and covered himself with a tarp in an effort to hide from an angry mob of locals. This poor guy has at one point thought he was going to have to prostitute himself, and now he's hiding from people who are trying to hunt him down and like extort money out of him at this point.
I feel bad for laughing, but Jesus Christ.
It's crazy.
Your cartoon hiding in the back of a truck because people are coming to get you. You almost can't believe that's real.
It's like, I kind of think of people fleeing war zones at this point. It's basically what it is. May 2017 is when all the repercussions came pouring in for Ja Rule and Billy McFarland, although more so for McFarland. They were both banned from visiting the Bahamas for life. Fuck you, Ja Rule. He's never going back to the Bahamas. I think that's a pretty good punishment, actually. I'd be like, oh, shit. I would have really liked to have gone there again. I can't go. That's really sad. Numerous lawsuits named both McFarland and Ja Rule and included claims of illegal wire transfers, tricking people to come by paying influencers to market the festival, general negligence, and violation of consumer protection law. McFarlane was arrested a few months after the event, taken by the FBI agents for wire fraud that could have ended up costing him 20 years in prison. Then he was set out on bail. At the time, he was also being sued for $100 million in a class action lawsuit. Fuck me. The court documents actually included the line that it was closer to the Hunger Games or Lord of the Flies than Coachella. So that's fucking
sounded
awesome.
like it.
The courts agree with me. The Hulu documentary, Seth Krosno says that on the Hulu documentary, Seth Krosno says that he and others who attended the festival and who obviously had all their information stored in emails because you've got to sign up for it, started receiving suspicious emails from a company called NYC VIP Access from someone named Frank Tribble. The emails offered tickets to big events like the Victoria's Secret fashion show, the 2018 Masters, Burning Man, and tickets to the Met Gala, an event that does not have tickets available for purchase. It turns out that the NYC VIP Access, all capitals, was another McFarlane venture. And according to BuzzFeed News, he allegedly sold over $100,000 worth of fraudulent tickets via the email scam. It didn't help that his business was launched while he was literally out on bail for wire fraud. When he was released on bail, he gave his address as his parents' place in New Jersey. He was living in a penthouse hotel room that he couldn't afford to pay the bills for and was eventually kicked out of. The whole time he's doing this ticket thing, he's invited a videographer along to film everything, and it's all on camera. He's as guilty as fucking sin. And the Frank Tribble dude, they're on camera the whole time, going, "Hey, I'm Frank," and shit like that. It is the most staggeringly stupid thing I've ever seen anyone do in my life. In October,
he was trying to fake it until he made it. He was videoing his stuff, doing his own MTV Cribs and shit.
This is my hotel that I can't
Here's
pay
my
for.
Stolen penthouse hotel room.
Let me show you how to commit federal fraud. Holy shit. In October, McFarlane was sentenced to 6 years in prison, a term he's currently still serving, for charges involving the Fyre Festival, NYP VIP access, and defrauding festival goers and investors. McFarlane pled guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and did so twice again for the fake tickets. He also had to admit, because he claimed that Fyre Media, right, which was actually doing well. It was employing loads of people, doing a bit of business here and there. He said it was worth tens of millions of dollars, or he'd made tens of millions of dollars off it. That's how he got the seed money for the festival, blah, blah, blah. He'd made 60 grand off this fucking company. So he'd basically paid himself a decent wage, not like CEO money, not millions of dollars, not keeping essentially a cut of the profits for himself because he owns shares in the company, 60 grand in like a year and a half. That's depressing.
Not that good.
That is not good at all. Very expensive offices in New York, and all these other people were getting paid. And one day he held a meeting where he was just like, right, here's the deal. I can't afford to pay you, but you can carry on working if you want. And someone in the call says, so what you're saying is you're not firing us so that we can claim unemployment benefits. You're saying that you can't pay us. And he was like, I don't know what to tell you. So let's go back. In October, I've covered the fake ticket thing. As Refinery 29 has reported, dozens of lawsuits are still awaiting him as well. In April 2020, during the COVID pandemic, McFarland requested compassionate release from the Federal Correction Institution Elkton in Lisbon, Ohio, to avoid contracting COVID-19, with the reasoning that as an asthmatic, he was especially vulnerable to the virus. I mean, there's a lot of asthmatics out there, really. I'm asthmatic. I think like half the people in my generation are slightly asthmatic,
Yeah,
So,
possibly. There's a lot of people that claim to be asthmatic that are not, though. I mean, like in instances where perhaps they want to get out of prison.
For fucking sure, yeah. And his request was denied, thankfully, that same month. As of 2020, McFarlane was housed in the Milan Federal Correction Institution in Milan, Michigan, under the federal inmate registration number, I'm going to say this now, 91186-054, with a scheduled release date of August the 30th, 2023. So a year and a bit away yet. In July 2020, it was reported that McFarlane had tested positive for COVID-19 at the facility, but survived with minimal repercussions. McFarlane's lawyer, it keeps going though, this guy. McFarlane's lawyer pleaded to a U.S. District Court judge that that his pre-existing condition made him particularly vulnerable to catching, suffering from severe, no, I've already covered this, forget it. Mr. McFarlane is no risk to the community nor a threat to the public safety, his lawyer argued to try and get him out of prison. The crime to which he pled guilty for was a non-violent financial crime of wire fraud, because no one ever got hurt from financial crimes, right? So he's no menace to the public. Given that he was released on like bail and immediately committed another fraud, kind of means that you shouldn't trust this guy on early release.
Feels like he might still be a threat to the public.
Yeah, he actually is. We'll get to that now. In October 2020, he was placed in solitary confinement after participating in a new podcast about his crimes that was released that week. Billy Kay can be heard discussing his various hijinks and their aftermath in detail from a prison phone on a show titled Dumpster Fire, which premiered with a Y, which premiered on Tuesday around October 2020. According to Mr. McFarlane's lawyer, he was being held in 23 hours a day solitary confinement after a trailer for the podcast was released online and may remain there for 90 days or more, pending on unspecified investigation by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. His cellmate was also in there, because his cellmate, you can be heard in the background of the conversation going like, yeah, Billy's a really good cellmate. Solitary for both of you. We believe the investigation stems from his participation in the podcast and the photographs that were taken and utilized in the trailer, which were all properly taken, said his lawyer, Jason Russo. We don't believe he's violated any rule or regulation, and there can't possibly be anything else. He's been a model prisoner there, says his lawyer, Jason Russo. The prison authorities replied with that he'd previously been placed in solitary at a different facility for possessing a flash drive in prison.
Okay.
So not model prisoner.
I feel like they're saying he didn't do anything wrong. However, there has to be some sort of fucking rule that says you can't have a podcast from prison.
I'm pretty certain, and it's different in this country. There's a rule in this country that says you can't profit from your crimes while you're in prison, right? So you can't release a biography while you're in prison. You can't any way you can profit from your crimes while you're in prison, you can't do. Once you get out, and you want to, like Jeffrey Archer wrote a whole book about his time in prison and made a shitload of money because his books are terrible and everyone buys them for some fucking reason. But I don't know if that's the same in the States. I feel like it should be. I feel like
think about this. Charles Manson was in prison for a long time. Imagine that son of a bitch had a podcast. Like,
I know.
I feel like that could be dangerous.
That's true. And I feel, didn't Charles Bronson do art? No, I'm talking Charles Bronson now. Didn't Charles Manson do art?
Yeah.
As well?
And they have like pen pals and shit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're having a podcast, I can sit here and look directly into the camera and talk into the mic and tell somebody to do something. Like literally carry out gang orders if I wanted to.
Essentially, yeah. And if it's coded, in a specific way, then that's a whole different thing. But yeah, he's definitely, like Charles Bronson. I mentioned his name just briefly just now by accident, but actually he sold art while he was in prison because he had notoriety. And after the film Bronson came out, he was a big deal. So he started painting. His art's kind of interesting. Sold it for thousands of pounds, kind of gave it to support his wife and, kept a bit of money for himself. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. He's not profiting from his crimes. He's just doing work that's being sold in the public domain. That's fine. I have no issue with that at all. This dude is directly involved in a podcast that is potentially going to earn money, and maybe he'll get a cut of it. And we know he definitely got a cut of the money from the documentaries, because Hulu had to admit that they paid him a lot of money, probably more than he earned at his fucking Fyre company. So, yeah,
but not more than he spent and enjoyed.
Yes,
partying on yachts.
That should be sent to people in the island that he conned. So that's the story of Billy McFarland, fraudster. So what do you make of Mr. Fyre himself, Billy McFarland? Also, one more thing while you're clearing your throat. There's another thing I was reading. There's a documentary out now, or documentary. It's a docudrama. So I'll let you get. You okay?
I swallowed, or I breathed water.
I'll explain just so you can catch your breath again as well. There was a thing that I was checking up on. There's a docudrama on Netflix right now called Inventing Anna, about Anna Sorkin or Anna, whatever she called herself. Anna, I can't remember. Anna Russo.
Came over and was like an heiress.
Yeah, she pretended to be like a German socialite or a Russian socialite and con people out of millions of money. She stayed in Billy McFarland's penthouse for a while. Yeah. So
they were fraudstering together.
Yeah. And they're both sociopaths from what I can tell.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think of Billy McFarlane and his antics?
Well, I feel really bad. Good grief.
In general.
You ever breathe water in?
Yeah, all the time.
I was taking a drink, trying to...
So clumsy as fuck.
Trying to clear my throat with a quick drink, throw a splash on there, and then I almost killed myself. So, Billy McFarland sucks. That's what I think.
Basically, yeah.
What he did to Annie King
that's horrible.
That's like the worst thing about the whole story. And I feel bad that people got taken advantage of, but
yeah,
early on, everybody was saying don't fall for that shit. So
yeah. And the worst part is the employees that worked at the company, they were aware of all of this. Like, they saw it happening. They saw stuff going sideways. They just didn't know the money situation. So, like, they're following orders, but there's maybe only like Ja Rule, probably, potentially, and like a couple of other people who were fully aware of the situation, and they knew everything. They're fully complicit. But all of these poor people that worked for Fyre Media, they were taken into this whole thing. They were working like 2 jobs. They were working for Fyre Media and the festival, and they could see that shit was going sideways, and they couldn't do anything about it. So,
and then he was like, "Yeah, not going to pay you anymore. Sorry."
Yeah. So they can't even get an employment benefits. The arseholes.
That's everything about this guy sucks really bad, and the sociopath part of it, it ruins me. But I mean, he didn't really kill anybody. He just did massive financial damage to an entire island community.
Yeah, that's the worst part. I do hope they recover, because I mean, they've got a sandals resort there. There'll be masses of tourism, possibly even more tourism as a result of these documentaries and the notoriety. Hopefully people will be like, oh, actually, you know what? The parts of the island that we did see in the documentary look quite nice. Let's go there. Hopefully that, in a sense, has raised the kind of profile of the island. But some of these people have lost like everything. It's really fucking sad.
Yeah. And for that reason, I think I'm gonna go slightly lower than my pillow feller.
Sure, yeah,
on this one, and go with an 80 even, just because nobody died.
Sure,
did you die?
So. Yeah, and actually that's funny, because that's what Ja Rule said in one of his tweets, where he was like, nobody died. He's like, nobody died. Why is everybody so upset?
You're not supposed to actually use that argument, dude.
No. he should have stayed off Twitter. That fucking idiot did so much damage to himself by going, look, I didn't know anything. If he just come out with a statement that said, look, I went along with this guy, you know, I maybe should have seen some more signs, but I promise you I didn't know the financial things. Like, yeah, people would have been like, oh, you know, maybe that was the case. But he just kept on going on and on, like, nobody died. Oh, all these rich people got their money taken off them. Oh, big fucking deal. I'm so sad. Like, he's basically persona non grata now after this whole thing.
Yeah. So
but it's Ja Rule. What was he going to do? You know? I tell you, the one person who had a really big laugh out of it was 50 Cent. It was just railing on him the whole time. He was like, I told you this guy was an idiot. So fucking funny. So yeah, that's Billy McFarland. I will happily take 80 for Billy because, again, like you say, like nobody died. It's just like it's a con of such epic proportions that it's either deliberate on his part that he knew he wasn't going to pull it off and he thought he was going to somehow come out of it with a shitload of money because
there's no way he thought it was real.
I know. Or like, he's so deluded, he thinks he's some sort of fucking genius and he can just say stuff and people will do things and it'll just happen. But it's not how the world works, William.
Yeah. His vision board did not work, sir.
His vision board was a complete dismal failure, possibly covered in other people's money as well. So, that's our show for this installment. So that was Billy McFarland, the Fyre Festival fraudster. And what was the pillow guy's name again? Sorry.
That was Mike Lindell.
Mike Lindell, the pillow producing, completely insane conspiracy theorist. Oh my God, so mad. I had a lot of fun researching this. I don't know about you because obviously, like you said, you get into a bit of you go into tangents with these people sometimes, like investigating their motivations and psychological makeup and stuff. So yeah, did you enjoy the process of looking into him?
I did, because I feel like I really uncovered like some key signals in.
Yes.
Hey, you know, when people are doing stuff like this, you've read about it in the psychology books. They're saying these quantitative phrases and then backtracking. So it's like a sleight of hand, but it's a verbal sleight of hand, I guess is what it is, with embellishing stories. And you can see that pattern, and then you can see how it evolves into he's buying his own bullshit, and then you can see how, well, now you're living in a delusion, sir.
Yeah, and if again, like we had this with the last episode, like a thing that kind of came out of it that balanced both people. I think with this, it's delusion. I think it could definitely be a delusion. I think it's people get into their own hype so much that nobody tells them that they're going off piste or going off track, and they become so deluded that they believe their own hype, and they kind of fall into that trap of ego. And I know that's the case with Billy McFarland, and the pillow guy has gone down the conspiracy theory thing, which, you know, is really sad. And yeah, basically because people get to a point of success and they just like believe that they can do anything. And unfortunately that takes people down dark routes, as we've seen, you know, usually fraud and crazy ass conspiracy theories and potentially starting riots at the Capitol building.
When we get famous, I'm going to join a cult.
I'm going to join a cult too. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to serve the leader so well. I'm going to be his favorite.
I hope we get Nikes.
Yeah. I'm going to join Scientology. It'll be so fun. Not that I'm saying Scientology is a cult. Just saying that I'll have a lot of money. Maybe I can spend it on them. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you'd like to follow us on our social media, on Instagram, it is History's Greatest Idiots. On Twitter, we are at Greatest Idiots. And if you go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, you can support us and help us make this show amazing, and even more so. And you can get so much cool merchandise and free giveaways and stuff like that. And until next time, Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I'm looking forward to talking at you next time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I've got someone really good in mind. And we will see you again soon. Take care now. Bye.